Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. And throughout our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We have prosecutors behaving poorly. We've got judges not particularly interested in a little thing called justice. And it all starts with the politicians, the people at the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and me to follow, but sometimes have a little bit of difficulty doing so themselves. That's why we started this show called Watching the Watchers, so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. And we're grateful that you are here and with us today. We've got some business to attend to. We're going to be jumping into a very interesting day, International Pronouns Day. My goodness, didn't even know it was a thing. It is, and the U.S. State Department is very celebratory about it. They posted something on Twitter announcing what this all means, and they linked us over to another government website where we learned a little bit more about pronoun proficiency, how to really learn how to use all this stuff. And so we're going to go through the show and actually take a look at what the government is communicating about how to use these, because it was applied very recently. We have a new admiral now over at the Department of Homeland Security. Her name was Dr. Rachel Levine. It's now Dr. Admiral Rachel Levine. Is a transgender woman, the first woman, according to the government, to be awarded this position. Very interesting development there. And so we're learning a lot about pronouns. And it's not just affecting the U.S. government. This is something that is spilling over into the private sector as well. Netflix is in hot water over some of these transgender, pronoun, non-binary, whatever's going on there. They have a lot of issues with that. And so they were upset that Dave Chapelle came out in one of his recent specials and also sort of, harped in on this issue. They were not happy about that. And so they decided to walk out today. And so we've got some footage of what that walkout looked like. Of course, trying to understand where their perspective is. What are they desiring here? What's the goal? And so we actually have a list of their demands. What do they want from Netflix? And so we're going to learn a lot about this area of our culture. So that's going to be an interesting first segment. Make sure that your questions are hot and ready over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. In our second segment, then, we're going to change gears. We're going to take a look at a company called Pfizer, because Pfizer is everywhere. You've probably seen them all over the place. Everywhere you go, it's get your vaccine, get everywhere you go. Vaccine salesmen, every channel you turn on the TV, everybody is just shoving it down your throats no matter where you go. And so Pfizer has been everywhere, including all over the world, not just here in the United States. There's an organization, a nonprofit called Public Citizen, and they just put together this really interesting report where they went through and they analyzed a bunch of different contracts that Pfizer entered into with foreign governments, places like the UK, places like Brazil, other various places around the world. We're going to look at them and take a look at the contracts, because what we're finding is that Pfizer has some pretty considerable leverage over these different governments. In other words, they get to set the terms in these negotiations. And you can imagine why. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Governments are saying, our citizens are dying here. Can you help us? And Pfizer just comes in and says, well, if the price is right, we'll consider helping you. And so we're going to look through that report. Very interesting. There are 6 different ways that Pfizer uses their leverage in order to gain an advantage over literal nation states around the world. So we're talking about a pharmaceutical company that is, in a better negotiating power than entire countries, which is just a scary thought. And then in our final segment, we're going to take a look at the final segment, of course, is about Brian Laundrie. You may have seen that in the news today. Gabby Petito case, this investigation has been going on for months now, came to an interesting head today down in Florida, in particular, Northport, Florida. What happened was Brian Laundrie's parents just sort of woke up, told the police, we're going to go for a walk down in there in this environmental preserve area. And cops said, well, we better follow along. And they walked down and they found some stuff. brought it back to the cops, and now the FBI set up camp. They're looking into these things that they found. They're wondering if this is the conclusion of the Gabby Petito case, and so we're going to get into that in the final segment and more. If you want to be a part of the show, of course, we are live streaming. We're taking questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com, where the chat is chatting away over there. We're live every day at 4 p.m. Arizona time. And so Joey Bandolaro's over there. 503 Unlimited. We got shout outs to Speech Unleashed. We got Three Girlies is in the house. Vientikis Prime is always here. And many others are chatting away. If you want to be a part of the show, of course, the form is over for supporters at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Use that form, and you'll notice if you have that secret link to that form, there's an actual embedded video now where you submit that form. So let me know if that is useful or not. Jeremy Matrita just joined us as well over on Locals. Also, if you're watching this anywhere else, if you're watching this on YouTube or Rumble or Twitch or on Twitter, anywhere else, and you're looking for segments, because this is a big, long show, if you want to find clips that you can just share to friends and family, I would really appreciate a share, first of all. Thank you. But you can get those over here at the Clips channel. We just crossed 1,000 subscribers over there. That's growing nicely, and we appreciate all of your support there. Just, spreading the news, spreading the good word, because I know that sometimes people can't stick around for the entire show. All right, so without any further ado, let's get into the news of the day, shall we? International Pronouns Day wasn't something I was aware was a thing. If you're like me and were a little bit confused by this, well, fortunately, the U.S. government is in charge. They're all over this. They knew this was coming and they were prepared for it. State Department posted on Twitter. They gave us some education about this. They say, hey, today on International Pronouns Day, we share why people list pronouns on their email and social media profiles. Okay, so they're going to educate us. And by the way, this is the Department of State. This is the United States government. This is the State Department. Okay, this is a gigantic branch of the federal government that engages in diplomacy with other foreign nation states. That's what they're posting today. All right, so they're educating us about international pronouns. Great. They're also going to link us to another resource. You can see down here, it says, why do so many Americans list their pronouns on social media profiles? And so because we've got some news to get into today, we're going to be talking about what's going on with Netflix. We're going to be talking about Dave Chapelle. We're going to be talking about Dr. Rachel Levine, now Admiral Dr. Rachel Levine. We got to make sure that we get our bases in order and learn how these pronouns work. So shareamerica.gov, yet another government website, is going to educate us here. You can see Share America is at share.america.gov, the web address down there. Happy that the government is helping us sort this out. This was written by Lenore Adkins, posted on July 1st, so it's a little bit older of an article, but they're telling us, Lenore is telling us, in the United States, it's becoming increasingly common for people to share their pronouns. And this is true, right? You see this all over the place. He, him, her, they, theirs, them, she, her. It's complicated, which is why we're going to learn about all this today, because it's so complicated. So educate us, Lenore. Says third person personal pronouns are used to describe a person or people in American English grammar as the subject, as the object, or in the possessive. All right. These pronouns include gender neutrals like they, them, and theirs, words that traditionally refer to a plural number. But today are used by some individuals who identify their gender as non-binary or who prefer not to share gender information. All right. Other pronouns include the feminine she, her, hers, and the masculine he, him, his. And some people are pioneering, which is true, they are pioneering gender-neutral pronouns like z, zer, and zers. So that's a Z-E, Z-I-R, Z-I-R-S. Yes, they are pioneering gender-neutral pronouns on the frontier of justice, I suppose. Many Americans are including their pronouns on social media profiles on their name tags as part of email signatures. They state them in meetings, whether online or in person, and at other venues. And you probably have seen this, right? They stand up before they speak. Hi, my name's John, or my name's, something. And I really don't understand the names part of it, right? Can you have a male name? Or do they all need to be non-binary names? I don't know. Anyways, let's see if I got ahead of myself. Let's see if we can learn a little bit more about this. The next section is pronoun proficiency. LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, other social media networks, they give users the option to list their pronouns. Pinterest is following suit. This author tells us that nearly 1 in 5 U.S. adults today know someone who goes by gender-neutral pronouns. 1 in 5 adults, according to Pew Research Center. White House also debuted a website form Yeah, and so yes, Joe Biden when he came into office, he issued an executive order, and all of these changes started to follow suit. So the website on the White House now has a website form that has gender neutral pronouns and also a non-binary prefix like MX. State Department announced that U.S. passports are going to allow applicants to choose male or female gender regardless of what their other documents indicate. Okay, and so eventually our passports are going to be updated as well. Non-binary, intersex, or gender non-conforming people are all going to go on the passports. All right, so that's good. So, okay, so in other words, the current passports are going to have a male or female option, but those don't actually mean anything because you can be a male and you just can pick a female. And if you walk up to somebody at the TSA or whatever and they say, says here you're a female, and you say, I am. You look like a violation, illegal, death penalty for that TSA agent. Yeah, it's terrible stuff. Okay, so now that we have pronoun proficiency in order, we're going to dive into something a little bit more meaty now. We have got some education. Now it's time for the exam, my friends. It's time for the test. We're talking about a lot of complicated terms that are all being interwoven here. Let's see if we can break this apart. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, they issued a press release yesterday, something to celebrate. In fact, a very qualified person got elevated, nominated up into a position of high prestige. In fact, it was very historic. And we know that this administration is both very and they are historic. Everything is very with them everywhere you turn. Very. This was very and this was very. And you say, yeah, very, yeah. They're also historic. Everything everywhere you turn is highly historic. Everything, like even people falling out of airplanes in Afghanistan, was pretty historic. I'll give them that. So this is yet another one of those events, something to be celebrated for immediate release from HHS. This came out yesterday, Tuesday, October 19th. Says this is a statement by officials of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services commemorating, well, that's nice, the first openly transgender four-star officer. Okay, sounds like a major accomplishment. And the first female four-star admiral of the U.S. Public Health Service Commission Corps on October 19, 2021. Now, we're not talking about two different people here, okay? You see this word and? Some people might say that that is conjunctive. That is sort of saying we're talking about two different people here. Somebody who is a first openly transgender four-star officer and the first female four-star admiral. No, this is the same person. So it is the first openly transgender four-star officer who is, according to this document, a first female four-star admiral as well. Which is it sounds like a historic day for women everywhere. I mean, something absolutely to be celebrated. And that's pretty amazing. We have one person is really elevating and sort of accomplishing two things. Transgender four-star officer, first female four-star admiral. Wow. Let's go into it. Let's see what else they're telling us here. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, they publicly announced today the nation's first openly transgender four-star officer across any of the 8 uniformed services of the United States. Wow. Admiral now Rachel Levine serves as the HHS assistant for Secretary of Health and Human Services and the head of U.S. Public Health Service Commission Corps was ceremonially sworn in as a four-star admiral. Admiral Levine now serves as the highest ranking official in the U.S. PHS Commission Corps and its first ever female four-star admiral. Wow. First ever female, highest ranking official all across the board. Like I said, I mean, this is really sort of, breaking that glass ceiling that a lot of women have been fighting for a long time. It has been shattered. The highest ranking person, first ever ceremonially sworn in as the four-star admiral. Highest ranking. This is amazing. Wow, what a shock. Admiral Levine is going to lead 6,000 public health officers dedicated to serving our nation. Today's, and here's that word, my friends, you can't get through one of these without it. Today's historic announcement right there, historic, builds on the accomplishments of LGBTQ plus History Month. It's a major step forward as we create a more inclusive society. HHS Secretary Xavier Becerra, not a doctor, assistant, and many other people, they issued the following statement to commemorate the first openly transgender four-star officer and the first female four-star admiral. Here's what they had to say. This is Xavier Becerra, says Admiral Levine's, here it is, historic appointment. There it is again, right? It's everything's very and historic here. As the first openly transgender four-star officer is a giant step forwards towards equality as a nation. This is a proud moment for us here. Admiral Levine, a highly accomplished pediatrician who helps drive our nation's agenda to boost health access and equity and to strengthen behavioral health, is a cherished and critical partner in our work to build a healthier America. That's from Xavier Becerra. So it is a tremendous honor, right? And I think that she should be very proud of being the first woman to really accomplish something amazing like this. Let's listen in and see what she has to say about this. She's excited and proud of her accomplishments. Here she is.
The opportunity to serve as the head of the United States Public Health Service Commissioned Corps as a four-star officer is an extraordinary honor and a profound responsibility. I am truly honored to join the ranks of men and women across this great nation who have committed to defend the United States against small and large threats, known and unknown. And I promise to uphold that trust to the fullest extent of my abilities.
Okay, so there you go, right? And listen, I don't have any issues with this person right there. I do have some questions about what, the military is doing in a lot of different ways, because while they're focusing on this, while they're focusing on the State Department, while the generals like Milley and many others have been outraged about, white rage and anti-woke parents and people at school boards, we have some other things that are a little bit more pressing. You might have missed this story, probably not, because it was everywhere. While we're worrying about pronouns and we're worried about, inclusivity and equity and all of these things in our military branches, in our government, in our foreign diplomats, at the State Department, everywhere you look, there are some actual adversaries out there in the rest of the world that aren't playing around. They're operating on a much longer timetable than anybody here in the United States. China, for example, they tested a new space capability with a hypersonic missile, and nobody in the intelligence community was even aware of this. China tested a nuclear-capable hypersonic missile in August. It circled the globe before speeding towards its target, demonstrating an advanced space capability that caught the U.S. intelligence by surprise. Posted over by Financial Times, says that 5 people familiar with the test said the Chinese military launched a rocket that carried a hypersonic glide vehicle which flew through low orbit space before cruising down to its target. Missed its target by about 24 miles, according to 3 people briefed, but 2 said the test showed that China had made astounding progress on hypersonic weapons, was far more advanced than U.S. officials realized. Test has raised new questions about why the U.S. often underestimated China's military modernization. Says here, a 4th person says, quote, "We have no idea how they did this." I can come up with a couple different reasons why, because they're focused on a lot of other useless garbage. They're worried about throwing out half the military because they're not getting their vaccines. They're not really focused on much else. Evidently. Now, look, historically, right, if you rewind the clock, let's say 1 year, even 10 months ago, and our military came out and like, no, we had no idea that China was doing this, I probably would have said, I don't believe you. I think that you probably are well aware of this, but you're just sort of feigning ignorance as not to show your hand, right? Not to display what cards you're holding on to. But after Afghanistan, I'm pretty sure that the military quotes here are accurate. They have no idea how the hell this happened. I absolutely believe that because they don't know how the hell much of anything happens based on their recent track record. So that's fun. So we're having a lot of celebrations about pronouns and first female admirals who were not born female, who are sort of taking positions away from other actual biological females and calling it historic. It is historic. There's no question about that. What is going on in China? This is what it looks like. So while we're talking about Z, Zim, and Zers, this is what they're doing. Hypersonic glide vehicle launched with a Long March rocket carrying China's lunar probe for its space program. So that's what they're doing. Now, it's not just around the world where we're seeing all of this stuff unfold. It's also happening right in your living room. That's right. It's coming through Netflix, where you're getting accosted and assaulted by absolute racist, xenophobic, bigoted monsters, people like Dave Chapelle. We've been seeing this story all over the place. He came out with a new special called The Closer. I've watched it. He talks about the trans community and about a lot of the tension, let's say, between different segments of society, different demographics that are competing for eyeballs and that are competing for causes. And he doesn't necessarily say some favorable things about that community vis-a-vis the African-American experience in American life, talking about some areas where there might be some tension there that is worth exploring. So he does this special. It is something that gets a lot of views. A lot of people at Netflix not happy about it. Why? Because they identify with the trans community. They are part of the LGBTQ plus demographic, and what they saw from Dave Chapelle that was being promulgated on Netflix was problematic for them. And so today they had a walkout, hashtag Netflix walkout. And so Netflix was bracing themselves for this. Some backstory here over from the AP tells us that the bosses at Netflix braced for the employee walkout. They were at a rally in Los Angeles. Anger swelled over the Dave Chapelle comedy special called The Closer. They say that Dave Chapelle in it, he said something like, quote, "Gender is a fact." He accuses LGBTQ people of being, quote, too sensitive. Ooh, that's spicy from Dave Chapelle. Oh my goodness, that's a lot. He says, let's see, Netflix said in a statement, "We respect the decision of any employee who chooses to walk out. We recognize that we have much more work to do within Netflix and in our content." Company said that they understand the deep hurt that's been caused. If you haven't watched it, I would encourage you to watch it. Organizers intend to present a list of the firm asks to Netflix. And so we have a list of what they want, what they're actually demanding here as a part of this walkout. You can see that this was posted today. It's out in front of the Netflix Epic building at 5901 West Sunset Boulevard. It was today, October 20th, organized by Ashley Marie Preston. And they're standing up in solidarity to support the Team Trans walkout at Netflix. And so, listen, I've always said, I've always on this issue, I've always been sort of, in exploratory mode. How many students, let's say, for example, at a high school are coming out as trans? Do we need to have, blanket federal laws to protect this entire contingent? Or is this something that should be better, managed locally with local schools and things like that? And, it's confusing because there's a lot of different people who are involved in this, and I'm trying to understand it, okay? Let's take a look at what this walkout was all about. Now, I'm going to play this, right? And this is what they're talking about at the walkout today outside Netflix. Here it is. We're going to learn about what the message is. How can we help this community? Here it is.
I stand in solidarity beside my sister, Ashley Marie Preston, first and foremost at this event today. She has proven herself as an activist, also a friend and a loved one to many people in her embarkment on activism. So thank you so much. Give this woman a huge round of applause. Beautiful young woman. Thank you so much for the invitation. I want to first say, as a non-binary individual, my name is David Huggard. As an entertainer and a persona, it is Eureka O'Hara, RuPaul's Drag Race. We're here at HBO. I found myself as a drag queen. I found myself as a person through that expression. Identity, expression, and sexuality are three completely different things. And I need everyone to understand that. But first, before anything else, understand that your jokes are promoting hateful and discriminatory behavior and conversation. And that is what hurts us.
Okay, so a lot to unpack there, but first most important concept is, human beings are more than just the gender, I suppose. You have an identity, he said, you have sexuality, you have expression. These are all three different things. Apparently, they're all dynamic. You heard that his name was David, but he's non-binary. And so I think now I had a question about names, and names are kind of gendered, aren't they? Like Robert and Roberta are two differently gendered names. So he's non-binary, but he's going by David, which I think is still male gendered. So I think that the names can go either way. Anyways, so that's what they're looking for, right? They don't want the jokes. The jokes are causing discrimination and harm and a lot of pain out there. And so something needs to be done about this. Now, we're trying to understand the trans community and their protests here with Netflix. There's another side to this story that needs to be heard here. And we're taking this seriously. What about the pro Dave Chapellers? Shouldn't they be heard as well? For example, there was a counter protest that took place today. Let's watch what they have to say.
We like jokes! We like jokes!
What do we
We
like?
like jokes! We like money! Give us money! Give us money! Give us money! Now! We like jokes! We like jokes! Jokes are funny! Jokes are funny! Woo! Dave's a very funny guy. I like his jokes. I like Dave. I like Dave.
I mean, that's a valid argument, right? Jokes are funny. Dave is funny. I like Dave. I mean, that's pretty clear. In law school, they teach you about the trifecta, the triad. You want to have these three. It's good alliteration to have bop, bop, bop. 1, 2, 3. I like Dave. Dave is funny. I like jokes. It's pretty damn great. Pretty persuasive stuff right there. So it's a tough battle. Now let's dig into this a little bit further. How can we possibly help? What are they asking for? You can see here we have David back over here who was speaking earlier, and so this is another woman talking about what they want out of Netflix. Let's listen in and see if what we can glean from this.
Today, on this full moon in Aries, it is time to make a change. It's time to release the old and break in new. What needs to happen if the CEO at Netflix wants to make it right with trans people? Give your trans employees a raise right now.
Whoa.
Give them a raise right now. For their hard work, for their hard labor, and for putting their trauma out for the world to see.
Give them a raise. That's what this is all about. Give them that money, because that is going to help make sure that harm and suffering, that pain and suffering that you caused, CEO, by putting Dave Chapelle, a comedian, on the air is causing so much pain and suffering. The only way you can compensate this, basically just double their annual salaries. I think that's enough. Yeah, that would solve the problem for this individual. Now, they actually did formulate a list of demands, so we got to make sure we can stop on these real quickly. Let's see what they sent over to Netflix. They say, over the past few weeks, this came over from TheVerge.com, which is a tech blog, says that over the past few weeks, it's become clear there are many places where Netflix still has to grow when it comes to content relating to trans and non-binary communities. The Trans Employee Resource Group, which includes trans and non-binary colleagues as well as numerous allies and blah, blah, blah. Here's what we want. We want the company to adopt measures in the area of content investment. We're going to take a look. Employee relations and safety and harm reduction. All right, quickly. It says content investment, create a new fund specifically to develop trans and non-binary talent. All right, so they want some more, Netflix shows, I guess. The fund should support above the line, below the line talent, whatever that means. Fund should exist in addition to another equity fund that they already have. They want Netflix to invest in multiple trans creators. They want them to revise internal processes. They want them to speak about potential harm. Let's see. Hire trans and non-binary content executives, especially by people of color, in leading positions. Okay. Employee relations, they want to recruit trans people. Leadership roles, allow employees to remove themselves from previous company promotional content. Well, that's interesting. Eliminate references to transphobic titles, so they want to come in and censor stuff. Talent, murals, posters, stuff like that. They want to acknowledge the harm and Netflix's responsibility for the harm from the transphobic content. So they want an apology letter is what it sounds like. They want a disclaimer before any transphobic titles, so they want to silence Dave Chapelle. Boost promotion for disclosure and other trans-affirming titles in the platform. So you're going to go on there and your recommendations are going to be filled with trans content if this goes this way, maybe. Suggest trans-affirming content alongside other stuff. when content is flagged as anti-trans. So they just want to shove they want more of their content, and then they want you to watch it. So we employees can do better. Trans community is looking forward for this company to make a better place, more entertaining for us all. All right. That's what they want. So they want Netflix to create a bunch more trans and bi content, and they want you to watch it. Even if you don't want to watch it, you're going to have to watch it. That's part of the deal, part of the structure. Now, look, I'm all for inclusivity. I'm all for, many voices and for people speaking out and communicating their positions. But is the trans community, is their movement really about that? Let's take a look at this. What happened to the funny I like jokes guy? Whoa! Whoa!
Why is he breaking my sign?
Whoa!
Breaking my sign! Don't have free speech, right?
Well, that's not very nice.
Oh, look, there's such a... He's got a weapon! He's got a weapon! He's got a weapon!
Well, that is not...
Oh, you want me to drop my weapon?
Yes.
Okay.
Get in leave.
There's my weapon.
We're not trying to have any.
I'm not disrupting anyone.
Well, that was not very inclusive, was it? That was not very nice at all. That man was just saying that I like Dave, which is very reasonable. It's not offensive to, to most people. So he got his sign smashed and ripped apart. And then as soon as they did that and he was left with a stick, what did they start shouting? He has a weapon. He has a weapon. That was literally a millisecond ago the pillar for the sign. Well, so that's a nice tactic. So they get to damage your property and then call it a weapon and then throw you out of the protest. So that's good for free speech, good for promotion. I think what they have done is sort of just validated Dave Chapelle's entire point. If you watch it, you'll know what I mean. Okay, so what did Netflix have to say about it? They say, for coverage of today's Netflix employee walkout, here's a statement. We support everybody. Do whatever you want. Recognize we have much more work to do within Netflix and in our content. Okay, so who knows, right? They may bend over backwards and you may hop right onto your Netflix account and guess what you see? It's just all of the Davids that you saw previously, which is just going to be very exciting to watch. All right, let's see what you have to say about all this and more over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. They're chatting away. We've got Soul Viking over there. We've got 503 Unlimited and Joey Bandolero. All right, let's see. Our first one is a big one here from Vientikis Prime. Let's see what he has to say. He says, first off, I'd like to say that my pronouns are donkey punch and supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And now for the fistful of nuance. The problem that surrounds this nonsense, as we know, is identity politics. This is a problem because identity politics is practiced by a very specific group of people, just about everyone. Everyone gets so focused in wrapping a bunch of concepts into a little package, but brevity is only the soul of wit if your idea is accurately conveyed. Sure, it's fun and clever to use terms to get a laugh out of people every now and then, but at the end of the day, they're labels, they're banners, they're ideologies. They are dehumanizing. We throw these words around to describe people left, right, liberal, conservative, feminist, capitalist, communist, socialist, so on and on and on. What do these words really mean? Ask different people, you'll get different answers. Why? It's because these words mean nothing. Their presence in the zeitgeist is nothing more than a connotative subjectivity and equivalent of the Tower of Babel for you religious folk. If people want real change in this world, then it might be a better idea to stop trying to put everyone into little boxes that starts with you, me, and everyone listening. It's like that Michael Jackson song before the scandal with little boys. When you assign a label to someone or else yourself, the person becomes a symbol, something to be admired or hated. The person ultimately becomes something of subjective value, creating walls, borders, and definitions. But actions, however, those are the things anyone can do. Very interesting comment there, VNT-Kiss. Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think people, the human being, the human mind is sort of pattern recognition software. We see a lot of the same things. And what do? We like to categorize it and label it and organize it. And then once you put something in that category, it loses a lot of the nuance, right? Somebody's a Democrat. Ugh, they're a Democrat? Whew. The worst. And so then you start treating them, and maybe that person is, was mislabeled, or maybe they are an old school Democrat. They're still a full person, right? But we take a lot of the nuance out of that because we let the labels take over. Good comment there. The Alphabet People says, Rob, him, badass, settle the debate. Is it LGBTQIA+ or LGBTQS2+? Yeah, that's a good question. We had to use the two S's like the iPhone because we ran out of letters, had to drop UTI, oops, UIA. It was costing too much to print. These supply chain issues are affecting all of us. Also, what are your thoughts about the 2S community? You can't join because you're a racist, white, cisgender oppressor. Anyways, happy pronoun day. I think that what we should probably do is just, make these pros and then pro maxes so that we just get clarity, maybe go pro maxes, prime, or LGBTQ plus pro or prime or there's a lot of options there, but I like it. It's complicated. I don't know. We should probably talk to a tech guru about those. Sergeant Bob says, this is all so over the top. I will be civilly disobedient whenever and whenever I can. That's from Sergeant Bob. Peacefully and civilly disobedient. Vientica says, I think it was back in May or June I found out the particular month was Disability Awareness Month or some nonsense. Being permanently disabled myself, I went on a long rant about how stupid that was and how I don't want to be used as a prop for someone's agenda. Thank you, Vientica. Sergeant Bob again says, this is your tax dollars at work, which is absolutely true. Very interesting that this is what's it's being spent on. Soul Viking says, and what's ironic is that I've seen the offense someone took when they're asked their pronouns. The woman said, if you can't tell I'm a woman, you have a problem. The absurdity. So that's hilarious. So people are going to be offended when you ask them about it. Well, let's see here. Pete Buttigieg is here. We've got a lot, so I might skip some of these amazing ones. But Dear Diary says, today I tried to breastfeed my baby. The baby has been able to latch, but I haven't been able to produce milk. It's so confusing. It's okay. We're going to be able to supplement the feeding with formula, but all these supply chain issues are making it hard to get the formula. If only I can find out who was responsible for this. In an unrelated note, my nipples are sore. Did you ever see that Family Guy, Pete Buttigieg? Where it was one of the earliest ones, really old one, where Peter Griffin is wanting to breastfeed Stewie. Did you ever see that one? And Stewie is just a baby and he doesn't know, a nipple from a nipple and he's sleeping. And so Peter is, Lois is out doing something else. He's like, well, maybe I'll try to breastfeed Stewie. So he pulls his nipple out, brings Stewie's lips right up to his nipple. Stewie latches on and starts just, sucking away, and then he realizes there's nothing in there. And then Stewie pulls his head away from Peter's nipple and pulls out a nipple hair and has a look of horror. And it is the most hysterical Family Guy clip that I've ever seen. I can't even think about it right now or I'll start cracking up. All right, let's see what else we've got. It was just amazing. All right, we got a couple more. Monster One says, I know this may come as a shock, but Monster One isn't actually my name. It's my pronouns. I highly appreciate the locals' community support with this difficult decision. I always knew I was a monster. I can finally and openly identify as one. Well, I'm glad you were able to feel comfortable with that here. Monster One. Speech Unleashed says, first, how does something even become an international day? Second, they are discriminating on their clip art because they aren't showing the 100 pronouns that have been, quote, invented. They don't even list furries as a pronoun, which is true, which is offensive. I mean, I think anybody who's a furry, not that I know any of them, would probably find it very non-inclusive. Sergeant Bob says, Hitler's regime had lots of very impressive titles for military and government personnel. This list is so long, I can't send it. It's very interesting. Yeah, it's the same thing as participation trophies, right? Remember when you were a kid? I had that crap, and I couldn't stand it. It's like, I did a terrible job. Here you go. You have a yellow ribbon. Why did I get a yellow ribbon? I did a terrible job. That's ridiculous. It's the same concept here, right? They want it's political. Look, maybe she's highly qualified. I don't know. Thunder 7 says, in honor of the pronoun day, I'm going to re-engineer your show to reflect how easily it can be done. Good name. My name is Zat. I'm happy to have them join today. You Z's and Z's on YouTube are welcome too. Today, I, Zat, now known as Kat, will talk about Rachel Levine, who identifies with the name. Yeah. All right. That's an interesting comment there, Thunder 7. I see what you're doing. Yeah, it's interesting. Three Girlies says, so like I talked in locals chat before the show, I've been learning this whole new pronoun thing for the better part of a year. My girlies have a friend that is transgender. Why is it flashing like that? Let's see if I can. We're going to have to turn this off and go back to white mode. Says, the girlies have, let me see here. My girlies have a friend that is transgender that goes by he and him pronouns. It's definitely been a huge learning curve. The girlies have informed me that it is rude and disrespectful not to use somebody's proper pronouns. But of course, the one thing that was stuck out to me was you only use pronouns when you are not talking to that person. So how do you disrespect somebody by talking about them if you use the wrong pronoun when they're not there? That's about when they step off exasperated about how ignorant their mom is. I have to come to a good solution if I can't remember the right pronouns. I just use their name. Ugh. That is really complicated, three girlies. And you know what? If you screw it up, right, you're probably offending these kids. And then they're going to go tell their parents. And now you're probably going to get arrested by the Biden DOJ. Good luck out there. Yeah, you get a lawyer on call. Speech Unleashed says, so is Spanish discriminatory since it associates words as masculine and feminine? In Spanish, is there only el, la, los, las? Furthermore, Spanish adjectives must match the nouns they describe in both gender and number. Time to recreate the Spanish language, considering it only recognizes two genders. Yeah, it's very, very xenophobic, and the entire language should be canceled immediately. Miss Lucky says, congratulations on the Admiral first transgender. The person is not the first female. They should make up their mind. Yeah, so it's either one. You're either the first transgender or the first female. Can't have it both ways from Miss Lucky. Good to see you, Miss Lucky. Captain Jim says, yeah, they sure broke through some ceilings with their new Admiral. 5 years ago would have been an article in The Onion, but in 2021, it's our real life from Captain Jim. It's our military. Sergeant Bob says, last comment of mine, Nero fiddled while Rome burned. P.S. Was Captain Kangaroo really a captain? It's sort of like a clown world. There's no question about it. It's a weird, and look, I'm not trying to be mean to that doctor, to that new admiral, but I do have to question, what the hell is going on? Ghost Gunner says, men still pioneering the way for women. Seriously, when will this lunacy end? Yeah, I mean, aren't women upset about this? Dave Chapelle said it. He said, how do you have Caitlyn Jenner, who is now Woman of the Year? Aren't women outraged by that? This is the first historic woman admiral. But kind of. All right. Another one from, let's see what else we've got. Former LEO says, I can't wait until the Republicans take back over in 22 and 46 is back on the White House and going to return some sanity to the operation of ours. Did the Admiral take a crash course in finding out port from starboard? How about indicting the Admiral for criminal negligence for having knowledge of the deadly consequences of COVID, but not taking action to minimize the loss of life? Yeah, Dr. Levine, I think that she removed her parents out of the nursing homes when they were ordering all of the other nursing home people to stay. One of those people. Let's see here. We've got to pick up the pace on some of these. John says, the Chinese missile is most likely a ripoff of U.S. technology. My biggest concern lies with our ability to defeat that thing. I would like to think that we're leading the way in military tech. Do you think the Romans discussed pronouns during their fall? I wonder. I don't know if they had the pronoun issue, but they had a lot of other issues, didn't they? Let's see. Statler and Waldorf from the Muppets say, what's next? Kermit the Frog will be given a government position with the power of high rank. Maybe he'll become one of those Branch Covidians. Viantica says, show me on the bear where the jokes touched you. Show me on the bear where the jokes touched you. Jokes are funny. Halgren says, Mel Brooks, Don Rickles, others like them had it figured out. Make fun of everyone because they're jokes and it's supposed to be a joke. It's supposed to be funny. Three Girlies says, it makes me so angry to hear about this person getting the first female admiral of anything. There are plenty of hardworking, deserving women who are working their tails off to break the glass ceiling. And this person took that role by being a token transgender. Whoa. This person shot up a chain that they had not worked towards. What does that say to our kids? That if you decide to be a protected class, you can jump the line too. Totally ridiculous. The only positive side, this is a civilian corps, not a military branch. And did Admiral Levine say how proud this person was when all the men and women that work in the corps? So this person is breaking the idea that there is no gender fluid or non-binary. I guess that even the most woke aren't woke enough. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, you're saying here that she gendered the entire civilian corps. I'm grateful to work with all the men and women. But she didn't say all the non-gender fluid, binary, asexual, whatever is going on with that. Didn't say that. It's a good point there, three girlies. Dave Chapelle joined in, said, the LGBT community can do all sorts of nasty things to their bodies, but they're hurt by my jokes? Seriously? It's an astute observation, Dave. Monster One says, all jokes aside, I refuse to use any new pronouns. I'm not calling anyone Zer, Zim, Bunny, or any other ridiculous thing that they come up with, as is your right. I think you have the right to do that. Sergeant Bob says, one protest is like a circus freak show. The other looks like normal folks. Which is which? The freak show expects people to kiss their butts. I ain't kissing no butts, nor should you, Sergeant Bob, nor should you. Monster One says, sorry, Rachel, I don't trust a man who murdered 15,000 people in Pennsylvania by putting sick people in nursing homes while removing his own mother, her doctor, her admiral, her mother. We can't misgender on this program. Look to G says, it feels to me like our culture has become a breeding place for narcissists. How more privileged can people be? As many of the people in support of these pronoun policies are among the top 1% of the world's wealthiest, highly educated, they still adopt the mantle of the oppressed. It's downright sickening. Their sexual orientation and self-identification is not the heart of the issue. I think there's a lot to that, Look to G, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that there are a lot of people that have had it just really, really good in life, and so they're I'm not saying they're manufacturing this, but they are identifying with a cause that gives them a lot of meaning and a lot of purpose, and it enables them to constantly cry foul no matter where they look. And there are a lot of other people in this country that aren't debating these topics because they are working and they are raising families and they are suffering through the difficulties of life. And some other people, they've had it so good that they find a cause to latch onto, and they are forcing everybody to play their game. And if they don't like your jokes even, that's too bad, because everybody has to comport to their new worldview. Even Dave Chapelle, somebody who's been around as long as I've been alive, longer than that, obviously. But he's now off limits because some people got their feelings hurt because he had a comedic special out there. Give me a break. Harden up. My goodness. All right, what else? Monster One says, if you have the power to dictate policy, you are not oppressed, you are the oppressor. That's from Monster One. And let's see. I'm going to fly through a couple of these, so if I skip through some of yours, then I apologize. But Gijum says, everything he, she, him, her, them, his, her, their, they don't do just isn't right. It is complicated. I know. Be Brave says, they are protesting over a tame comedian, while in the meantime, the government is coming for your kids 5 and up, guessing the trans don't have kids. Not to mention our infrastructure, our economy, it's purposely being imploded. Basically, we are in a war, and these idiots are enraged about stupid stuff. Yeah, there's I think a lot more pressing issues right now than Dave Chappelle's comedy special, but here's where we're at. Let's see. Monster One says, that sign was being violent. It's true. Perry Masonary says, this is troubling. Identified as American, but not any Democrat. That's from Perry Masonary. And we have Three Girlie says, wait till you hear why these activists are up in arms with the new Michael Myers movie. Apparently a gay couple moved into Myers' house. And of course, the gay couple, of course, gets killed. Now, activists are calling Myers homophobic. Apparently, only straight people should die. Whatever happened to being equal? Instead, the activists want to be treated as special and privilege. That's from Three Girlies. Oh man, a lot of comments on this. Former LEO says, to cover all the bases, we could just use other, because that appears to be the goal. Or you just stop talking to people, right? You just say, I'm not going to even bother with people anymore, because it's a lot of work. We have The Last Villain says, if they could write a decent screenplay or script, Netflix would buy it. They want an additional fund and a raise. Extortion. I don't know, but it's lazy and disgusting. You work with the tools you've got, and some people just don't have that many tools, so they got to go make them up. Joey Bandolero says, how is this real life? Am I dead and in hell? It feels like that some days. Three Girlie says, oh, I forgot to give you the link. We got discovered horror fans are calling Michael Myers homophobic after Halloween. Let's pull this up real fast. Yep, there it is. Headline over there. Let's see. There it is. Horror fans calling the Michael Myers film homophobic. He's homophobic. Halloween Kills was good. Why did he kill one gay couple? He's homophobic, confirmed. Does that make you homophobic? Okay, I don't look. I mean, everybody gets murdered in murder movies. I don't think there's anything bad about that. Speech Unleashed says, such a shame to think all the great entertainment we can no longer watch. Airplane, Richard Pryor stand-up, most Mel Brooks movies, George Carlin, etc. Because nowadays they'd be considered offensive. as opposed to comedy. Yeah, the whole world is like that. People are just not even talking anymore unless it's approved. Sweet Potato says, you can't win. I got in trouble at work for saying you guys. Then someone said ladies, and older ladies don't like that. So I just say y'all, all awkward because it's Washington and I'm not a Southern belle. That's it's really complicated out there. That's why I'm saying don't talk to anybody. You just silence. You can't talk anyways. You got masks on all over the place. Nadler's Dirty Diaper is here. Says my pronoun are he's and his Jerry's. I'm now over 32 pounds. So yeah. So oh my goodness. Yeah. His Jerry's, like Ben and Jerry's maybe, or Jerry's Nadler's. The worst. Monster One says in response to Three Girlies about how you be the parent and stop letting your children. Whoa, Monster One is saying, look, Three Girlies, stop with the pronoun stuff in your household is what he said there. Wonder why things are going to hell, he says. It starts at home. No, yeah, maybe you guys are duking it out there in the comments. I don't know. Vienticus Prime says, anyone else find it ominous that a person with a medical designation is being charged of a military branch? I don't think it is. It's just it's a civilian, corps that pretends to be the military. Tree Mendes says, living in PA, I'm definitely not a fan of Rachel Levine, and I think it's ridiculous she was made admiral just because she checked some boxes. But what's the difference between calling someone the first black woman VP and the first trans woman admiral? I don't think that that's what people are upset about, right? It's the idea that she's the first female trans admiral, because she's really the first trans woman admiral, not the first woman admiral. Unless she is. According to Health and Human Services, she is. She's both of those things. Because you are what you say you are. Even if you have XY chromosomes. Doesn't matter. According to our Health and Human Services, which focuses on health and science. All right. Pennsylvania resident says that the admiral had poor record of protecting nursing home patients. This is her promotion. Clown world, indeed. Tweak says, I want to add some positivity to this tragic topic by adding some happy contrast to this discussion. Not LGBT people support this crap. We must not forget them. Like Ricky Rebel. Let's play this, or let's see what this is. If it is a song, I typically can't play those. Yeah, because we might get a YouTube copyright strike, Tweak. So sometimes I don't know what the song is, so I won't play it. But we can definitely. That's what it looks like. Go check that out. MAGA YMCA parody. We have and thank you for the comment there, Tweak. A Chinese transsexual says, I got kicked out from the protest for not having the correct vaccine. They didn't even check masks or vaccine passports there. Mustang Jeff says, me, him, his, he, and I that am Rob. Great to see you. No more goofing off. I'm going to get back to business, Jeff. Let's see. Jeremy Matrita's here with a nice one. Says, Rob, I've been following this case for a while. I don't trust. Oh, this is on the Laundrie's case. Okay. All right. We're going to get back to that one there, Jeremy. Sergeant Bob says, maybe too late. I worked with a TG and a gay guy in different assignments. Got a fine. I accepted. All this just makes me anti. They're losing by putting this in my face. Ooh, that's from Sergeant Bob. I'm sure that a lot of people feel that way. And Jack Elias says, I bet you can't answer this. How about the elephant in the room? A delusional individual is now in charge of the nation's mental health and health generally. Some people have that perspective, yeah. Harden up, Rob? Seriously, dude? You forget what you're doing this segment on? Uninclusive and insensitive of you. I know. Listen, that wasn't my comment, I don't think. Was that my comment? Oh, that's right. I did say that. That was very offensive. I wasn't creating a safe space to have meaningful conversations about any of this. All right. Well, my friends, those were great questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And Sweet Potato, wrapping this one up, says, when you create a Pinterest account, they ask you for your pronouns up front. It's becoming normal, though, these little processes sneaking it in. That was the last question over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And shout outs to user1121 over on Rumble, to the top secret super chats, secret YouTube cabal that we're formulating over on YouTube. Shout outs over there to KB and Zulu, Jenny B, and George Klaus, all in the house over there. And of course, our amazing supporters at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. All right, our next segment, we're going to jump right into it, because we still got some business to attend to. We've got the whole Pfizer segment, and we have the entire Brian Laundrie segment And we're already an hour in. Can you believe that? All right, well, we better just get to it then, I suppose. Brought to you by Pfizer. Have you seen Pfizer everywhere? Everywhere you look, they're sort of advertising. Every time you turn on the channel to a news person, even Donald Trump and people out there hitting the media, the campaign trails, everywhere you turn, a bunch of vaccine salesmen. They're just shoving it down your throat every single direction you take. And it's also on the TV shows, also coming in right into your living room. You may remember seeing it. Looks kind of something like this, brought to you by Pfizer.
Good Morning America is brought to you by Pfizer.
CBS Health Watch sponsored by Pfizer.
Anderson Cooper 360. Brought to you by Pfizer.
ABC News Nightline. Brought to you by Pfizer.
Making a difference. Brought to you by Pfizer.
CNN Tonight. Brought to you by Pfizer. Early Start. Brought to you by Pfizer. Friday night on Aaron Burnett Out Front. Brought to you by Pfizer.
This Week with George Stephanopoulos is brought to you by Pfizer.
This weather report brought to you by Pfizer.
Today's countdown to the royal wedding is brought to you by Pfizer.
And now a CBS Sports Update brought to you by Pfizer.
Meet the Press Data Download brought to you by Pfizer.
This portion of CBS This Morning sponsored by Pfizer.
On how to find the hidden sugars in the American family diet. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Okay. So that is basically everywhere, right? All the different news agencies, CBS, CNN. You had George Stephanopoulos, Meet the Press, Good Morning America, Good Morning this, Good Morning that, all over the place. And we've covered a lot of that here on the channel. We've talked about how these companies have changed and matured. It's very, very convenient if you're running a business, if you can have a product that is being mandated that every single person must use it. Very nice to have that feature. But it's also convenient if there is no price tag that anybody has to worry about because the government is going to be paying the bill. Two very, very nice feature sets. Now, their stocks have gone through the roof. Everybody is invested in it. If you're a congressperson, Pfizer is basically mandatory to be in your stock portfolio, and the list goes on and on. They're all over the media. They're everywhere. A very interesting report came out from an organization called Public Citizen. You can see that this individual was the primary author on it. Name is Zain Rizvi, and he entitles this Pfizer's Power. So we're going to go through what is happening in this very interesting document. It's not particularly long. It is going to give us 6 different factors or 6 different methodologies, techniques that Pfizer did use when it was negotiating contracts with various different nation states around the world. The United States included, UK, Brazil. We're going to look at some of these contracts and take a look at how Pfizer was using its leverage as a pharmaceutical company in the middle of a global pandemic when people are supposedly dropping dead like flies to orchestrate massive leverage to gain a major upper hand in these contracts. Government, you do what we say, otherwise you don't get our vaccines. Let's dig into this. Public Citizen, before we go through their report, who are they? Let's make sure we are vetting some of this data. It's a national nonprofit organization, more than 500,000 members. They represent consumer interests through lobbying, litigation, administrative advocacy, research, financial regulation, all this stuff. They talk about campaign finance reform, government ethics, fair trade, climate change, corporate and government accountability. You can see they're all over the place. They've got an office in Washington, D.C., 2 of them actually, a main office and an office over on Capitol Hill. And they've also got an office in Texas over there in Austin. And so it's not a huge report. It's actually 12 pages. We can take a look and see what is in here, but they give us these 6 different ways that Pfizer is actually gaining leverage over these different nation states. They tell us that in February, Pfizer was accused of bullying governments in COVID vaccine negotiations. There was a report that came out. Government noted at that time, it said that, quote, 5 years in the future, when these confidentiality agreements are over, you're going to learn what really happened with these negotiations. Okay, really, you're going to see what Pfizer really did. When they went into these countries, they leveraged their way in to be the vaccine provider. What really happened? They negotiated a number of different contracts, and this organization called Public Citizen, they identified all of these. They say they read through them, offering a rare glimpse into the power of one of these corporations, a big pharma company, over different countries, different governments around the world. You can see here's just a quick synopsis of the different contracts that they did, in fact, review. Places like Albania, They had a contract for 500,000 doses, $12 a dose, cost them $6 million. All right. Smaller country in Brazil, they had 100 million doses. That was a $1 billion contract. All right. So 6 million, that's kind of peanuts if you're a big corporation, but $1 billion, that's a good one. How about over at the Dominican Republic? Oh, just a cool 100 million over there. Colombia, 120 million for that contract. The EU, European Commission, they wanted 200 million doses. Now, they didn't get as good of a price. So if you're Brazil, they negotiated a $10 price for their drugs, but in the U.S., in Europe, in the European Commission, that got bumped up to $18.60. So they paid a little bit more, $3.7 billion over there. In the U.S., $2 billion, $1.95 billion. U.S. got totally taken advantage of. $19.50 for the price of the drugs that U.S. government paid, because the U.S. government is useless. Everyone else got lower rates, but not the U.S. So 100 million doses for $20 a pop, $1.95 billion, and then redacted everywhere else. So we don't know what the U.K. paid, but probably closer to the United States, right? Because why wouldn't they? All right, and so we sort of know what they're looking at. This is Public Citizen. They're specifically taking a look at all of these contracts from Pfizer in between a number of different nation states. And what Pfizer was doing is pretty outrageous. In fact, they say that there's been outrage around the world. Why? They're slowing purchase agreements. They're pushing delivery dates back on the vaccines. If similar terms are included as a condition of to receive doses, they may threaten Biden's commitment to donate 1 billion vaccine doses. So in other words, Pfizer's not upholding their end of the bargain. High-income countries have enabled Pfizer's power through a favorable system of protection. The Biden administration, for example, can call on Pfizer to renegotiate these existing commitments for a fairer approach. They can further rectify, they can do a bunch of stuff to sort of fix some of these problems. We'll see if they do it. What else do we have? Okay, so let's take a look at where Pfizer is winning in these negotiations. And I talk about the concept of leverage, the idea, when you're going into a criminal case, let's say, for example, if I walk in there and I say, hey, Mr. Prosecutor, you should give me a very good deal. My client allegedly committed some crime. I say he didn't do it. You say he did do it. Let's negotiate this out. Why don't we come to an arrangement? And the prosecutor says, well, I'm open to your arguments. What do you have for me? And I say, well, I don't have any legal arguments to make, but he's just a really nice guy and he's never been in trouble before. Prosecutor says, well, that's interesting perspective there. Well, he is like a million other people who are also nice guys, who also have no criminal record, so why should I give you a deal? And in that situation, I have no leverage, do I? Because I don't have any legal arguments to make. I have nothing to hold over that prosecutor's head. I have nothing to leverage a better deal with. But if I were to go back in there and say, well, I've got some pretty good evidence that one of your officers falsified this evidence or fabricated something or did not follow standard operating procedures, and therefore, this is going to be a big problem if this moves forward. And so what I'm asking is for a reduction. Client will take that deal. You'll get something out of this case. We'll move forward because now I've got a negotiating tool. I've got something that I can use in my conversation with the oppositional party. You know what this means. It's something that you probably use in your own business or in your own lives, in your own work. And so what Pfizer is doing now is entering into these various negotiations with different governments around the world. And they are reserving in these contracts very significant benefits. First one being that they reserve the right to silence the governments. Okay, this is a pharmaceutical company saying that we're going to shut the governments up. In January, Brazilian government complained that Pfizer was insisting on different negotiations. Brazil said these are unfair and abusive. Government pointed out 5 different terms. They said there was a sovereign immunity waiver on public assets. Okay, so basically, if sovereign immunity means that you're a nation state, you can't be subject to lawsuit. So in other words, Pfizer can't sue Brazil. Well, they waived that. So Pfizer can sue Brazil. And if Pfizer is late, if their deliveries are late, doesn't matter. Brazil just has to eat it. Less than 2 months later, Brazilian government accepted the contract with Pfizer with the same terms that they originally complained about. Brazil said it was unfair and abusive. Then they just accepted it. They waived sovereign immunity. They have no penalties on Pfizer if they're late. They agreed to resolve disputes under a secret private arbitration clause under the laws of New York, and they broadly indemnified Pfizer for civil claims. So if you're in with Pfizer, you got a great contract, right? Brazil's going to have to pay you for everything. Brazil is not immune from lawsuit. You don't even really have to deliver anything on time. If it's late, whatever, they can't do anything about it. If they're mad about this stuff, well, Pfizer's immune from lawsuits, no civil claims. And if you have a particular problem with Pfizer in general and you want to go to court over it, you don't even go to courts. You go to a private arbitration that exists in the state of New York. Pretty damn convenient for Pfizer, I will say. Because what leverage does Brazil have? Well, they don't have their own Pfizer, do they? They're not going to create their own pharmaceutical vaccine. And they've been screamed at by everybody in the world that this is the only thing that's going to save lives, and they have to buy this, right? They have to get it. Zero leverage. Pfizer holds all the cards here, and they utilized it effectively. Contract contains additional terms that are not a part of other countries. So, for example, the government is prohibited from, quote, making any public announcement concerning the existence, the subject matter, or the terms of this agreement. So Brazil can't even talk about these terms. Pfizer gained the power to silence Brazil, okay? So they draft a contract that just totally screws Brazil, and they say you can't talk about it if you want our vaccine. Shut your mouth, and maybe we'll deliver them. Maybe they'll be on time, maybe not. And if they kill a bunch of people, it's your problem. Don't sue us. And if you don't pay your bills, we're going to sue you. And it's all going to take place in our arbitration court. It's pretty damn good, isn't it? Yeah, pretty good. Also happened to the U.S. U.S. had that term in their contract. Neither Pfizer nor the U.S. government, same terms, can make any public announcement about the existence or the subject matter or the terms of the agreement. Right? And this was all implemented under Donald Trump. You can see these are the footnotes. Brazil contract. See this down here. They have the actual language. They've got the European Commission contract. That's in footnote 27. U.S. contract in footnote 28. And so they kind of just have the government, by the short hairs. How else do they control these governments? They control donations. So they control the supply. So not only are the contracts in their favor, but they can just restrict different governments from getting the vaccines in general. They can't even buy the Pfizer vaccines from anyone else without Pfizer's permission. They're restricted from donating, distributing, exporting, or any of those things. If Brazil does not comply, well, it's going to be what's called an uncurable material breach of their contract. Pfizer is going to terminate it immediately, and Pfizer then is going to be entitled to full pay for the full price of any remaining uncontracted doses. So if there's a material breach, Pfizer wins everything. Pretty nice, pretty convenient. Pfizer has also secured an intellectual property waiver for itself as part of this contract. The CEO has emerged a strident defender of intellectual property, called a voluntary World Health Organization effort to share this stuff nonsense and dangerous. Doesn't want any of the IP, the intellectual property going out anywhere else. He said President Biden, the decision to back the TRIPS intellectual property thing was so wrong. Contract here, though, shifts responsibility for anti-intellectual property that Pfizer might commit to the government purchasers. You read that? Let's read that again. Pfizer does recognize the risk posed by intellectual property to vaccine development. As a result, under this contract, Pfizer can use anyone's intellectual property as it pleases, largely without consequences. So number 3, Pfizer has communicated in their contracts that their intellectual property is to be protected. Their vaccine, all of their data, everything that's associated with this project, with this contract, highly protected. But in the marketing, in the manufacturing, in the development, in the sale, if Pfizer uses anybody else's intellectual property, nothing you can do about that. Sorry. Do you want the shots or not? Yes or no? If you want them, you're going to comply with these terms because Pfizer owns everything now. How about this? If there is an actual problem, so you remember that unfair contract we were talking about? What if you want to contest that? Do you go to like a regular court, like a federal court? Do you go to a local state court, municipal court? No, you go to private arbitrators. Pfizer's arbitrators. Here's what happens there. Private arbitrators and not public courts, they're going to decide these disputes in secret. So if the UK has a problem with Pfizer, guess what happens? You get a secret panel. You get 3 private arbitrators. Nothing in a UK court. They get to make the final decisions. They follow the rules under the Arbitration of International Chamber of Commerce. And both parties have to keep everything secret. See this here? Parties agree to keep confidential existence of the arbitration, proceedings, submissions, everything secret. Yeah, keep confidential. There it is. It says the Albania draft contract, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Dominican, Peru, all of these things, they got to go to the ICC in New York. So if they want to fight this thing, it goes right to Pfizer's judges. Right? You don't even go into your local nation state. Outside of the nations. Wild. Pfizer can go after state assets, so we'll pick up the pace here. Pfizer can go after state assets. You can see that the doctrine of sovereign immunity can sometimes protect states from corporations seeking to enforce and execute awards. But they all waive that. All of those nation-state sovereign immunity protections, all gone. Pfizer requiring Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Dominican Republic, and Peru to waive sovereign immunity. Yep, and all of these different awards, the contract allows Pfizer to request the courts to use state assets as a guarantee that Pfizer is going to be paid if the government doesn't pay. In the U.S. court, these can include foreign bank accounts, foreign investments, state-owned enterprises like airlines and oil companies, right? So if you go to Brazil, Pfizer says, we've got this contract, right? You owe us $1 billion for all of these vaccine doses. Brazil says, well, we're not going to pay. Guess what? Pfizer wins everything. And if they want to challenge it, they go to Pfizer's courts. And if Pfizer's courts say, Pfizer, you won, obviously. This is your court. And the government doesn't want to give over capital, no problem. They just go get state-owned enterprises like an airline company or an oil field. And because there is no sovereign immunity there, perfectly legitimate to sue them. Very interesting. Now, Pfizer also gets to call the shots on key decisions, like if there are vaccine supply shortages. Well, Pfizer decides they get to adjust the delivery schedules. They get to do anything to modify the agreements. They get to alter the deal. Pray they don't alter it any further. Some governments have pushed back on their unilateral authority for other decisions. In South Africa, for example, they wanted sole discretion to determine additional terms. South Africa said, no, that's too risky. You're not doing that. But others have not been as successful. Pfizer, they control key decisions, indicating there is a serious power balance with these corporations. And so, all of the people out there that are just constantly, well, they're just nice, good pharmaceutical companies looking out for our best interests. You can see nation state by nation state, them going around negotiating terms that are favorable to them, not to you. Let's see what you have to say about this over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Let's pull the questions up. See if we're chiming in here. We're jumping into the next segment here shortly. Let's see. That was on the last segment. Jumpin' Jeff says, isn't this just the back door for how government funds the propaganda? With all the money given to Pfizer for the COVID vax, they turn around and spend it on advertising. Well, they know that this is like a golden window for them. This window opens and it's going to close at some point. And so they are getting it while the getting's good. John P. Pfizer says, this is the largest criminal fine ever imposed, brought to you by Pfizer. Yeah, and I saw that. What was that for? I remember this. Pfizer did. Yeah, the largest criminal fine in history came out from Pfizer. Lawsuit details. Full approval. Pfizer agreed to pay a $2.3 billion in criminal and civil liability stemming from the illegal promotion of certain drugs. Largest healthcare fraud settlement in history. $3 billion in criminal and civil charges. Yeah, all right. GlaxoSmith. Yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah, so, oh, wow, that's what a remarkable company. Let's see what else we've got. Thank you for the link on that one. We have another one from Sergeant Bob says, the age-old question in various colleges of business, social responsibility versus obligation to the shareholders to maximize profits. A lot of people getting very rich right now on the back of a lot of people's lives and livelihoods. Captain Jim says, well, the mainstream media may as well be brought to you by Pfizer. Where else will the News Corp get their money from? While Admiral Levine is breaking ceilings, MSM's viewership is busting cellar floors. That's from Captain Jim. Yeah, I think CNN, most of their shows have less than 1 million viewers regularly, which is like wild. Perry Masonary says, we got screwed by Pfizer, yet Joe has no pushback. Something's wrong here. Brandon is complicit, can be the only reason. Well, yeah. Yeah, a happy Pfizer client says that Crimes Against Humanity hearings at The Hague brought to you by Pfizer. Coming soon. Stay tuned. Watching the Watchers brought to you by Pfizer. Can you believe that? What if that's how this was, right? Actually, that's not even as bad, right? At least if you're sponsored by it. But what makes it even more egregious with these news companies is that they're clearly biased, right? They're sponsored by these companies. But then they act as though they're impartial. And then they bring on these government officials like Fauci, like Rochelle Walensky, and all these people to come on and ask them questions. And they sit there as though they're unbiased. What a racket. Vienticus says, move over, IMF. Pfizer wants a piece of that colonial pie. That's from Vienticus. Look 2G says, scary stuff. That Pfizer montage reminds me of other montage videos where the reporting is overlaid between different news organizations. It's pretty obvious they're all reading the same reporting from the same source. In other words, no actual reporting equals propaganda. Let's see what this one is. Yeah. So it's one of these script videos. I'm not going to play that, but it is a good one. There was one that it was like, I think 16 different news anchors, and they said, this is a danger to our democracy, right? And this is a danger to our democracy, or we're protecting our democracy, or something like that. The same script. And I've made this point, look 2G, many times, and I swear it's getting worse. It's copy and paste journalism everywhere you look. And look, I do a show, right? We do this show here. And so I'm scouring the news sources when it's show prep time aggressively. It's just copy and pasted crap all over the place. It's really hard to find original, actual journalism, people investigating and doing things. Most of it, it's like a handful of people doing the work, and everybody just copy and paste everything else. Weird time to be, in media. Jumpin' Jeff says, so does that mean that Pfizer has unfettered access to all research carried out at Wuhan lab? Maybe that Project Veritas can get to the bottom of the COVID origins. I highly doubt it. I think that this is sort of one thing doesn't have anything to do with the other. They are selling vaccine contracts, essentially. They don't care where the coronavirus came from, as long as they keep getting that good vaccine money. We have Speech Unleashed says, normally I agree with Trump, but sounds like we got suckered on that contract he agreed to with Pfizer. Perhaps that is why he was recommending people to use other therapeutics like that one drug first. These contracts are just another reason why these vaccines should not be mandated unless the contract also requires that too. It might. I don't know. Probably not, right? That's a stupid, boneheaded, bureaucratic decision. Mustang Jeff says, the company is greater than a government? No way. They must be subservient to nation states. No more of this globalist crap. That's from Mustang Jeff. Be Brave says, I heard a similar report regarding the terms in Pfizer with Haiti. They will basically own Haiti. Of course, the previous leader who was against the vaccine was conveniently assassinated. Then the vaccine was rolled out in Haiti. I'm assuming the X was post-assassination as well, or the contract. The X is the contract. Post-assassination as well. Very interesting take on that, Be Brave, right? Sort of corporate takeovers of public assets using the vaccine as a lighting point. Vienticus Prime says, the segment brought to you by the movie Rollerball, which I've never actually seen that movie, so I don't know it could be bad or good. I don't know. AstraZeneca's here says, did you forget about me? I don't have the glitz and glamour of Pfizer, but we're still here. Do you enjoy having Pfizer run the world? If you don't like it, our pharmaceutical company is happy to step in. Sweet Potato says, what about Moderna, Janssen? Why is it one nation under Pfizer? Also, what happened to the USA donating vaccination doses and all that? Pfizer is like the all-powerful evil genie Jafar in Aladdin. He was a pretty rude dude. Mrs. John Halgren is here, says, this is the largest human experiment volunteered by fear. Ugh. Wild. Former LEO, good to see you, says, what are they selling that they need to advertise? Isn't the vaccination almost mandated? I think most prescription drugs need a prescription. The kind that are like written by a doctor. Yeah, I mean, normally before you inject pharmaceuticals into your body, kind of have to talk to a doctor about it. Unless it's the vaccine. Then you don't even need to talk to anybody about it. You just go in and say, I want that. And they say, perfect. Give me your arm. Pfizer says, oh gosh, you better watch what you say, Rob. We'll activate the magnets if you keep coming after us. It's true, right? I could go there. I could pick up a prescription. I got a sore throat. Can I have some of that amoxicillin? No, it's rat poison for you, Rob. You're dead. Brought to you by Pfizer. Thank you. We have another one from Vientica says, I hear there was a bunch of strange deaths and assassinations over the past couple of years. If you compare them to what the leaders of the other countries were doing in response to the virus, there's absolutely nothing to see there. Perfect. Thanks, YouTube. Don't look, nothing to see there. It's all well and good. Great questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Thank you all for being there, for your amazing questions on this segment. Okay, and we have one final segment to get to before we wrap up with the show today. What are we talking about? That's right. Brian Laundrie, Gabby Petito, this investigation saw a lot of activity today in Florida because Brian Laundrie's parents decided to go on a walk. And they found some very interesting things out there. We've got some video, we've got some photographs, we've got a report from the FBI detailing what they found and what the next steps are in this investigation. Let's start off with a headline over from Fox News telling us that the possible human remains were found in the Brian Laundrie search. We're coming out of Northport, Florida, where they're talking about finding possible human remains discovered today inside an environmental park. The name of the park is called Myakkahatchee. Look at that name right there. Love that name. Myakkahatchee Creek. On Wednesday, Laundrie's parents, Chris and Roberta, are the parents, of course, Brian. They were inside the park and they found, quote, some articles of belongings to Brian. Senior law enforcement official told Fox News that there appear to be human remains there, and the family, who has a lawyer now, guy's name is Stephen Bertolino, he has a statement. We're going to check in with him as well. Officers now, they're conducting a thorough search of the area. A lot of people were piling in today. I've got video footage of that. Feds rolling in hot. They've basically been there, but they're rolling in now. And a spokesperson for the Sarasota County Medical Examiner's Office confirmed the office was called there as well. So basically the coroner showed up. Human remains, evidence of Brian Laundrie's personal effects, I think a notebook and a backpack, some indication that this area was already being looked at, but it was underwater at the time. And so the water has sort of removed itself from this area. Laundrie's parents just got up, went for a walk. FBI searching the area. Coroner came back in and is also now sort of examining these human remains. Remember, a couple weeks ago, we talked about Gabby Petito and the remains, her remains that were found. We heard from the coroner. They're telling us that her remains were out there for a long period of time and that their death was by strangulation. Cause was homicide. So going to see a lot more activity here. Let's see if we can figure out where we're operating from. This is out in Northport, Florida. It's on the west side of Florida here in between Port Charlotte and Fort Myers. And so we zoom in. It's sort of in this area in Florida. When we zoom in a little bit, we're going to see this right here is the Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park. And Laundrie's parents, they live over here near Northport. And so it's not too far away where they were. And in fact, they actually got up this morning and said, we're going to go for a walk over in that area. And you see those two areas, so not too far away. Laundrie's, they claim their son went there to Myakkahatchee on September 13th. So that's about 2 months ago, over 2 months ago. That was the day that he was last seen, left their Northport home at 7:15 a.m. So sort of, left early, went up into this area. Feds have already, combed this whole area for a long, long time and haven't found anything, but could be because there was a lot of water in the area, as we're going to hear from the FBI. So you can see sort of, these rivers and tributaries. This is Florida, a lot of water all over the place. And so that could have been, a part of a marsh or a swamp or an area that was literally just underwater. So 7:15, he went out. They left their home. This is when the parents went out this morning, 7:15 a.m. local time. There were two men in hiking gear. One of them turned out to be a law enforcement officer. Laundrie's and one of the men, they discussed a discovery before the parents left. Everything was enclosed immediately thereafter. So Fox News, they talked to the family's lawyer. The guy's name is Stephen Bertolino, represents the Laundrie family, said that they were searching the area and, quote, some articles belonging to Brian were found. FBI also made a note on Twitter, says items of interest were located in the Carlton Reserve in connection with the response to Brian Laundrie. evidence response team is also processing the scene as well. And so here's a picture of Laundrie's parents walking through the marsh, through the preserve. And so you can see mom has a mask on, dad does not, walking through the park, Myahachie Creek Park. And people are sort of wondering, like, why did they just wake up and decide to go for a walk? FBI, U.S. law enforcement has been searching for this guy for a long time. They just decide to wake up and go for a walk. So they call law enforcement, and they said, we're going to go walk around that area where we sort of told you to look previously. And they go for a stroll. You can see here's an image of them from the rear. And so there was another law enforcement official. Law enforcement was notified about this walk. That's why the people were following them. You can see here there was a bag. So this is a waterproofing bag. The way that these bags work, basically, if you never used one of them, I've done some backpacking and stuff years ago. You take these bags, you open them up, and you put the stuff that you want to keep waterproof in there, and then you fold them over themselves many times. So you can see this area here. It's sort of the opening would be up, sort of like a bag of chips, right? Open up the bag of chips, you roll it over itself, roll, and then you take these two clips here. This will clip into this side, and now you're going to have a watertight bag. So don't know what's in there, right? But there was a watertight bag. Don't know whether that was something that Laundrie had with him or whether that was something law enforcement brought with them to collect something. Sort of looks like it's been out in the wilderness for a long period of time. So it may have been Laundrie's or somebody else's bag there in that area. And so what we can see, the parents continue to walk on, sort of walking down, maybe out of their home down into the crevice down there. And then once law enforcement catches wind of this, they start setting up a tent, right? Now their investigation is well underway. We see a lot of people piling in there. This is the K-9 unit. We have the sheriff's unit also floating in there as well. And so they tell us in a worldwide exclusive, Fox News obtained video footage that shows the Laundries, the parents, and law enforcement huddling and speaking as the officer appears to show the couple an unknown discovery. Officer apparently told the parents, I think we might have found something. During the couple's time inside, Laundrie could be seen moving in and out of areas of the brush. After a short period of time, he and Roberta separated, with Chris and two men moving into the brush on the left side of the trail for approximately 12 minutes. Chris returned without law enforcement, and the couple continued on. Laundrie has later discovered a white bag and a dark-colored object after traveling through a patch of brambles at the edge of the bush. They then could be seen putting the object into the bag, handing it over to law enforcement thereafter, who later took it from them. Here is a scene of what that looked like. Now, there's no audio here, but the reporter is sort of watching this, right? There's an officer who looks like he's in plain clothes. He's got a hat on, and those are the Laundrie's parents there. And so they're just, they're talking. Nothing really exciting happens in this clip other than they're just, communicating. And it looks like mom is holding onto a bag. Don't know if that's the same white bag that has anything in it. Of course, law enforcement's going to want to get the evidence, right? They're not just going to let mom and dad just go pick up some of Laundrie's private effects and take them home. So they're having to, be very cognizant about this. This is a potential crime scene. And so, mom and dad are not going to be allowed to, go in there and manipulate any other evidence. They're talking about, preserving this stuff. Chain of custody also needs to be preserved, right? Who touched what, who moved what. And so, yeah, parents definitely alerted them, right? They weren't going out there secretly. Law enforcement was right on them. And look at this nice guy just walking that good puppy right there. What a good boy. Yes. Looks a little scared, but really good boy. And so that's what's going on with the Laundrie case. Now, FBI came out and gave us a report about what's going to happen next. Before we get there, on the way out of the park, parents received a phone call, then made a phone call, then received a phone call. They were soon joined by a law enforcement officer who could be seen patting Chris Laundrie's shoulder as he huddled with the couple, right? Their son might be dead. The couple left the park 8:45 a.m. Laundrie's returned home shortly thereafter. appeared emotional when confronted by the protesters there. Meanwhile, about a dozen uniformed law enforcement officers, 6 people in plain clothes could be seen entering the park. Several police, unmarked vehicles, and gators seen entering. Let's see, Northport Mobile Command arrived at about 10:30 a.m. Here you can see, I think this is a video of the coroner now. He's sort of pulling into the area. That is Fox News telling us that's the coroner. You see the feds, the black vehicles all over the place. So press was obviously very, very interested in what was happening today. They set up shop. You can see that here. A lot of people waiting for an update from the FBI, and we got that. FBI came out here today, and this is about 2 minutes. They take no questions, of course, because it's all, happening right now. They probably know very little. But here's the FBI telling us what they do know and what to expect coming up as the investigation continues. Here is this agent.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael McPherson. I'm the special agent in charge of the FBI Tampa Division. As you're aware, the FBI and the Northport Police Department and our state and local law enforcement partners have been searching the area of the Carlton Reserve for Brian Laundrie, a person of interest in the murder of Gabby Petito. Earlier today, investigators found what appears to be human remains, along with personal items, such as a backpack and notebook belonging to Brian Laundrie. These items were found in an area that up until recently had been underwater. Our evidence response team is on scene using all available forensic resources to process the area. It's likely the team will be on scene for several days. I know you have a lot of questions, but we don't have all the answers yet. We are working diligently to get those answers for you. We are grateful for the dedication and professionalism of the Northport Police Department, along with our partners from the state and local agencies. Complex investigations such as this cannot be accomplished by one agency alone, but there's just too many agencies to name them all here today. Portions of the Myakkahatchee Creek Environment Park and Carlton Reserve will remain closed to the public until further notice. This is an active and ongoing investigation, so we ask the public to maintain distance from any law enforcement personnel, equipment, vehicles, and other related activity for the safety of the public and to protect the integrity of our work. We have no additional comment related to today's activities. Our FBI Denver office is the lead investigative agency, and all future inquiries should be directed to them. We appreciate the tremendous support from the public and continue to ask for your assistance in bringing this investigation to close. Thank you.
Was the backpack found near the body? Justice for Gabby! Justice for Gabby! Justice for Gabby! Justice for Gabby! Justice for Gabby!
Okay, so about what you would expect, right? The FBI just found out that there's a new crime scene. They're going to be investigating it. It's going to take some time. They're going to comb the area. They're going to do, all of their testing. We're going to see what the DNA results look like. We're going to see if it is in fact Brian Laundrie. We've got people protesting justice for Gabby, which I think that's what they're working on right there. So I'm not really sure what they're too upset about, but who knows? Now, the Laundrie family, they are obviously, potentially waiting the death of their son, presumably. We don't know yet, but the attorney came out and is telling us that the family lawyer releases a statement. It says Chris and Roberta Laundrie were at the reserve earlier today when human remains and some of Brian's possessions were located in an area where they had initially advised law enforcement that Brian may be. Chris and Roberta will wait for the forensic identification of the human remains before making any additional comments. That's from Stephen Bertolino on Fox News. Let's see what you have to say about this story over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. A lot of interesting twists and turns in this story. We'll see what the comments have to say about it. Now, I had one previously from Jeremy Matrita, which was a little bit out of the order. That's okay, Jeremy. We're going to go back and pull that one up because it was a long one. I want to make sure that we get to it. So let's see what we've got. All right, so I'm scrolling back. And Thanks for bearing with me. Want to make sure we get, I want to make sure that we can get to this one. Come on. All right, well, I can't find it. So if I missed it, Jeremy, if you can resend it, that'd be great because I don't know where the hell it went. All right, Monster One says, Rob, I used to inject pharmaceuticals all the time. I never talked to a doctor. Well, all right. Well, that's one approach, Monster One. You can certainly choose to do that. No question about it. Let's see what else. That was on the last segment. Here we got the last villain says, parents did the right thing, or Joe Biden is covering his tracks. She smelled too good. Oh, yeah, that's not good. Captain Jim says, Rob, out of curiosity, you're going to cover the Ahmaud Arbery case. I think the trial just started the other day. Yeah, that's from Captain Jim. Yeah, probably will. We'll probably touch on it. You know, it's still in the middle of voir dire right now. They're still doing jury selection. I have been following it. I will probably cover it. Here's the thing, is the Kyle Rittenhouse case is starting, I think, like next week. So let's Kyle. So I did not want to do, Rittenhouse starts November 1, right? And so I'm not going to be able to do two trials back to back. So I have to sort of pick and choose. There's no way I'm going to be able to do Ahmaud Arbery and Rittenhouse. So Arbery is probably going to finish voir dire this week or maybe early next week. And then they're going to jump right into the trial, and then that trial is going to go right into the start of the Rittenhouse trial. And so I'm looking at my calendar, and I'm trying to sort of prioritize, and I definitely want to make sure we spend more time on Rittenhouse. Now, Ahmaud Arbery is absolutely worth a conversation. Once that trial starts more in full, then we'll start taking a look at it. But right now, they're just going through jury selection still. And so it's somewhat interesting, but it's I don't think it's at the time. It's not ripe enough for full coverage, but we will. I mean, we spent a lot of time on that case when it originally happened, and so we're not going to forget about it. Be Brave says, admittedly, I've not followed this at all except for brief excerpts from the coroner's report. That being said, this stuff stinks to high heaven. If there's a body, I seriously doubt it's Landry's body. Too weird that parents would be out there walking and discover his body. So it does sort of feel weird. Now, I think that the parents, according to their attorney, he's already recommended that law enforcement goes and looks in that area in the first place. And if they called law enforcement and they said, well, we're going to go back out there again and look again. You know, sometimes moms just get intuitions. I don't know what's going on. That's why it's so curious, isn't it? Former LEO says, you have no idea how sick and tired of the coverage of more homicide that I am, thanks to 25/7 News, 25/8. We have Sergeant Bob says, agent tipped his hand thanking for various help in bringing an investigation to a close. That says it all. That's from Sergeant Bob. So Sergeant Bob is very observant, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. Sweet Potato says, do you think the parents are sus? Are suspect? Well, I haven't seen any evidence to support that. You know, I mean, honestly, you know, I have a lot of empathy for the parents here. If their son is dead, you know, their whole family, if their son is dead and the son murdered another woman, right? That's a horrific tragedy that happens to parents. And I haven't seen anything that would implicate them in any way. I've seen a lot of the internet stories, like moms outside in the back moving like a flower pot. Mom moves a flower pot, and the internet's like, oh, there it is. Brian Laundrie's under the flower pot. There's a secret contraption down there. He's under there. Mom's feeding Brian. You know, and I'm like, I don't see that. If there's evidence, I'll take a look at it. But what this probably is are a couple very, you know, upset parents who are mourning a dead son in a horrific tragedy, if I had to guess. But I'm open to conspiracy theories on that. Love those. Be Brave says, so thrilled that the Google form is now storing all of our messages and connecting them to individual Google accounts. Not surprised, but it's a change. That the Google form, well, so Be Brave, you don't actually have to log in to use this form, right? So you can just use this form without logging in. I think so. I think I made it that way so that you didn't have to log in, so that you can be anonymous. I don't require any validation. I don't need to know who you are or what your position is. Let's see what else. Thunder7 says, what did the FBI say? Is it the remains of an animal or a recent human? I don't believe this is the remains of Brian. The parents are definitely up to something. Wait for the DNA. Ooh. Man, that's that's interesting. Let's see what else here. We've got a couple questions on this one. All right, I think that's it on the questions for Brian Laundrie. Yeah, I think that's it. Let's see here. I was trying to find another one, but that's it, my friends. So that's it for the questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Thank you for all of your support on that segment. Want to welcome some incredible new people who have joined our community. We have some new members, which is just super exciting. Let's welcome V-Dub Shani is in the house, or V-Dubs Hanny. Either one, I'm not sure. Welcome to the community, V-Dubs. We also have FireDat58. Welcome to our community. We have Sir Darren 1 is in the house. Welcome, Darren. Good sir. And we have Maxime 15T again. Now, there's something very interesting going on with this Max fellow, or Maxim 15, Max over here. We have Maxim 27 over here. Very supportive of the show. That's the only thing that's going on. I'm forever grateful. Very, very generous. Now keep signing up and supporting the show in multiple different ways. And that's very nice, Maxim. Thank you for that. I mean that a lot. I check my analytics and you just keep signing up and supporting us. So thank you for that. Really enjoying it. All right. And so those new members are going to be able to meet with us on Saturday, November 6th from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time for our monthly locals meetup. It's a ton of fun. We have a very nice Zoom, very casual, about 30 people, kind of just, hanging out, cameras on, cameras off, meeting each other, connecting and building that community. That's what this is all about. And so I hope you're able to join us over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And that, my friends, is it for me for the show today. We are going to be back here on Locals broadcasting live. If you want to be a part of that show, it's at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We are recording 4 p.m. Arizona time, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. This all premieres at 7 p.m. Arizona time, 10 p.m. Eastern on the East Coast on YouTube. And so check that out if you're looking for the premiere. That's where it's going to be taking place. And of course, shout out to all of our friends over on YouTube. Quick reminder to also subscribe over on our Clips channel so that you never miss a segment of the show. Otherwise, I'm looking forward to seeing you back here 4 p.m. Arizona, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. on the East Coast, and for that one Florida man. Everybody else, have a tremendous evening. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.